Our next speaker is Les Newton. He is the president of Planned Community Developers. Les's tenure with PCD began in 1984. Since then, he has overseen development of over 5,000 residential lots and 6 million square feet of office, industrial, and retail properties. Current projects include the $300 million Sugarland Town Square and the $500 million Lake Point Town Center located on the opposite corners of US 59 and State Highway 6. Les also serves as the vice chairman of the Greater Fort Bend Economic Development Council. If we have a presentation here in a second, please help me welcome Les Newton.
I'm going to cover in about 10 minutes, hopefully, the history of public-private partnerships in Sugarland, most of which we've been involved with. Starting in 1991, this was a very simple deal. They all started simple. There were no 4A, 4B corporations. Our first regional shopping center was the Home Depot anchored power center. And in that deal, basically, the city just served the purpose of being the municipal utility district. It wasn't in a mud, so it was very straightforward. They provided about $2 million of utility reimbursement once we had the shopping center built, and there was sufficient AV to issue bonds and reimburse our money. In 1995, we did the mall deal. In 1995, we made a deal. Heinz and we joint ventured on the mall and approached the city. This was their first use of the 4A and 4B corporations. We needed about $8.5 million to build highway frontage roads, improve drainage, and so the 4A, 4B corporation was used to provide a mechanism of reimbursement. Most of our deals have been public reimbursement where we have advanced the money and then been reimbursed on certain criteria. In this case, in addition to the $8.5 million for the freeway improvements, they also provided a reimbursement of $5 million for the mall parking lot. That was to be paid over a 10-year period from the new sales taxes generated by the mall. And it went very well. After the mall stabilized, we actually had an accrued interest rate that was based upon our cost of money. And you're going to see how this changes as history has moved forward. That was a motivating factor for the city to approach us in 2001, I believe, after the mall had stabilized. We had about $9 million of balance remaining on the receivable, and they said, well, why don't we pay this off early? We said, great, we always need cash. And so we worked out a small discount, and they issued bonds based upon the cash flow of the mall to pay that receivable off early. Then, in 2002, we made the deal on Sugarland Town Square. And that involved the first use of tax increment financing in Sugarland. We formed a TERS. The TERS was fortunate to get 100% participation by the city, the county, and the Levy Improvement District. That involves them foregoing ad valorem taxes on the new development for a 25-year period. That was not enough to do the deal, but in addition to some additional funds from the 4A, 4B Corporation, that's what caused Sugarland Town Square to happen. The numbers. We had $11.5 million of infrastructure that, our objective with Sugarland Town Square, people may think we set out to build this great mixed-use project, which it's become, but we were basically focused on creating a good office environment. We thought we had visited Reston, and we thought this was a better way to do it. And we took our city there. They embraced the idea. But our objective was to provide this upscale environment without being totally out of line with the competition on our cost basis. So we sought reimbursement of $11.5 million of infrastructure, and that was to be, again, a public reimbursement where we got reimbursed on certain criteria that are on my slides. And But the most important part was that this was, in order to get this project started, we knew we needed a full-service hotel. We knew that it took a cash investment to get a full-service hotel. We were fortunate at that time to attract a developer of Marriott. The city agreed to invest $19.5 million of cash upfront on construction draws to build the Sugar Land Conference Center, which was integrated with the Marriott. The deal wouldn't have happened, the project wouldn't have happened if they had not been willing to take the risk that once those dollars were invested and once occupancy came back, and by the way, 9/11 happened right before we started construction. So it really took 2 years for the hotel occupancy to get up to where it needed to be to begin cash flowing. And the hot tax from the hotel obviously services the bonds that the city ultimately issued to fund that. I think everyone in the city will say it turned out to be a win-win deal. They've made money. We're very happy with the project. In addition to that, as the mayor said, there's always free land involved. We gave a free site for the development of City Hall at the base of the plaza. And additionally, the city provided for our office tenants 7.5 years of tax abatement. And then when you realize that they're looking to the TERS for taxes, ad valorem taxes, to help pay for the infrastructure, and yet they're going to abate that to our office tenants, that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on that 4A and 4B and on sales taxes. Fortunately, we've had a very robust 4A and 4B corporation in Sugar Land that's been able to do this and many other things. We also had the benefit of the city stepping up again later in the project after we had completed our first office tower. We wanted to start the second one. Every one of our buildings has been started purely spec, and at the time we thought we could use a little bit more equity to get our financing. We approached the city and they agreed to accelerate a portion of our infrastructure reimbursement to give us additional cash equity that allowed us to start our 8-story building. So we started that on a spec basis, and it fortunately became the Minute Maid building when we signed a deal with Minute Maid. And in that case, once again, the city stepped up, analyzed the economic impact of Minute Maid to our city, and made a decision to provide some direct rental incentives to Minute Maid. So this has been a very, very involved partnership. I think it's been a win-win for everyone. There's some great pictures of our new building that we just finished on Highway 6. We just signed our first full-floor tenant on our last building. We've completed construction. We've got another 2-story building that's fully occupied, so we're in the last phases, and we hope to lease up very quickly. Then in 2004, we acquired the 190 acres around Fleur at the opposite corner of Town Square at 6 and 59. And we had a return to simplicity. The city wanted us to do some quite a few traffic improvements on Highway 6, and they were willing to give us a reimbursement agreement, very straightforward. We developed so many square feet of office and retail. They give us half the money. We developed so many more square feet. They give us the other half of the money. And we've been fortunate to already achieve those milestones and seek that reimbursement. Now, interest on that reimbursement was based upon the city's latest bond rate. So you can start to see there's been an erosion in what we're getting. But there are no hard feelings. Then in 2005, General Growth approached the city on the idea of expanding First Colony Mall with an outdoor expansion similar to what they did in the Woodlands. And City Council was very in tune to keeping our mall current, keeping it viable.